Okay, thank you. We're going to take our seats and continue. Thank you. If everyone could take their seats so we can continue. Thank you. Can you do that louder for me?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, could we be seated so we can continue? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Since Vice wasn't here, I said pass it to him, and I got no voice to scream. I'm trying. Okay, we're now in the second part of the evening. We're once again call to order. Roll call.
Mayor Truppen.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tudor.
Here.
Commissioner Beard. Here. Commissioner Johnson Sadella.
Here.
Commissioner Ross.
Here.
Attorney, for clarification, do we have to stand for the pledge again? Would that be necessary?
We already had one. It's up to you all.
Yeah.
In honor of folks at 9/11, can we all stand again and have the pledge? Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Manager and commissioners and clerk, are there any additions, withdrawals, or deletions from the agenda?
We do have one addition. A contract came to us in Public Works today for a soccer academy.
Public Works?
Not
Recreation
Public
Center.
Works, I'm sorry,
Parks and Rec.
And for a soccer academy. And the clerk should have distributed those. Have you? So you guys should all have a copy of that. And we would like to go ahead and move forward on that tonight if possible, if the commission's willing to hear it.
Okay, are there any objections?
No.
Okay, no, and for the purpose of the audience, this is a resolution 2018-29, contract for the Youth Soccer Academy program at the Ed Burke Recreation Center. So added?
It's going to be item
10F.
10F.
Yeah.
Okay.
Presentations, Village Manager.
Okay. Last month, we had the Children's Safety Day at the park, and we had two staff members, Officer Leslie Llanos and Issa Thornell, our Parks and Rec manager, who just did an exceptional job on it. And so we wanted to say thank you to them for their exceptional work, and we have a little something for you guys, if you'd like to come up. We have a Community Service Award. This is presented to Officer Leslie Llanos in recognition of your outstanding service and commitment to the village of Biscayne. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Well deserved.
And for Mr. Issa Thornell, thank you. Community Service Award. You guys together did an exceptional job on that event. And we just want to say thank you and let you know how much we appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, from the middle, so you get everybody.
This way I can feel tall.
You guys that let me sit in the back, otherwise.
Bobby, so get in there.
We're looking to the future.
Okay, now we're going to open to public comments related to the agenda items, good and welfare. Once again, follow decorum rules. Thank you so much. Open for public comments. Yes, and then just go ahead and give your name and address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Solange Rousselot, 11660 Northeast 8th Avenue. I moved here about 4 years ago. I just came to say thank you for your time. And since I moved here, I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. And since then, recently, I've noticed in the park I feel safer, especially with the police presence. I see the park prettier. So that's why I came here, saying thank you. I think you're doing a good job, and I've noticed that recently. So thank you very much. And maybe you can consider also to do 4-year terms. It's going to be cheaper for our town instead of 2-year terms. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Okay, close public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Come out of here. Speedy.
You gotta get a horn for that.
We need a horn. Yeah, I think I agree. Horn. Don't rush. No, no more falls.
No running, skateboarding inside.
I know. Hi. Barbara Watts, 720 Northeast 118th Street. Regarding the village commissioner, well, I think that I have a certain perspective because I served, as many of you know, for 5 years as a commissioner. During that time, I worked with 3 different village managers. And during that time, I met managers who lied, who dissembled, who withheld information from me, who played favorites, and who I later learned in one instance acted like tyrants to the fellow members, employees of Biscayne Park. I think that in comparison with that, I think we have a stellar village manager who, in the face of whatever petty or whatever criticism there is, has acted with equanimity. And who has worked very hard. All I saw, though, on Nextdoor and things were, criticisms about Hurricane Andrew, when in fact we had our stuff picked up long before others.
Irma?
And close on time?
Irma, Hurricane Irma.
Karma. Okay, Karma. Irma. Okay. And I think that so much was done that in this last year and a half, I think we should thank Christian. And from what I've read on Nextdoor, I think, to quote a song from the Music Man, there's not a man alive who could hope to measure up to the expectations of certain residents. I think what your people are asking for and expecting is a combination of Pericles, FDR, and Mother Teresa. We're not going to get that. We're going to get a human being. And I think we have a fine one here as a village manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. So I want to first recognize that Dan has an exhibit at the 9/11 Dan Samaria. So thank you, Dan, for putting that up. Also, and I want to congratulate Leslie and Isa for getting Community Service Award. I want to make just a comment about one of the resolutions, which is the refinancing. It still, I think, still states that we have a savings. We don't actually have a savings. We have a loss, and I understand the reason that we're doing this because the bank would be a problem. But I don't think we should state in the resolution that it's a savings when it's in fact a loss of probably $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, not a savings of $5,000. In fact, I recalculated the loan using the new. This is something you might want to consider, by the way. We're going to be making a slightly lower payment, which means we're actually going to be paying a little more interest than we would have paid, or about the same interest practically. So you might want to consider making the payment the existing payment the same. Because when I ran the amortization with the new payment, which is lower, the interest comes out about flat even, believe it or not, with the lower rate. So, the thought. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really need this. Rosemary Weiss, 116th Street. I really don't need this. Ditto what Barbara said. I was going to say all that, but she beat me to it in regards to Christian. outstanding person. Quality, respect for people. The door is always open. There will be those who criticize who do not know what his job entails and what he has done since he's been here. I know because I see it. I listen. I watch. Thank you very much. Outstanding. I hope we keep you on forever. Otherwise, who am I going to give Krispies to? As regards to the Children's Safety Day, I have a comment about Officer Leslie. Outstanding job with Isa, but I would like to make a complaint. She would have won that tug of war if Chief hadn't let go of the rope. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
Charlie Easton, 960 Northeast 116th Street. I just wanted to put in a good word for Christian as well. He's been a delightful person to have in the village. He's always great to work with, and he took a job and then got smacked with a hurricane. And you know what? He did it. He got the job done. And I thought did a wonderful job. There are criticisms. And one thing I think that you have in him that has to be recognized is somebody that looks like they're in it for the long haul. All of the other village managers who've come in with their stellar resumes and all that have used this as a stepping stone, and frankly, couldn't wait to get out of here. I think if we have somebody that is willing to be here for the long haul and is willing to improve at the job and year by year get better, in a few years, you're going to have somebody great and a great asset to the village. And that's what I have to say. And Christian.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? No public comments. Closed. Any information updates, Manager? None. Okay. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Is there a
consent
second?
agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Village Manager, ordinance 2018-04.
Okay. Mr. Herman?
And do you want to, in abundance, after you read do you want to open public comments first or after? Is there a
It's up
normal?
to you all. I'll read the title of the ordinance. This is an ordinance on, scheduled for second reading. It's ordinance number 2018-04, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, authorizing the borrowing of money from Florida Community Bank N.A. for the refinancing of an existing loan in an amount not to exceed $297,000, approving the form of the execution and delivery of loan agreement with Florida Community Bank, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Just as there's a typo there that we'll correct. If I may make an observation or comment regarding the ordinance. When the item was first provided to me, I reviewed the documents that were and the ordinance and the resolution that were used to finance the renovation of this structure several years back. And one of the things that was done is that there was an ordinance that authorized the borrowing of the money, which is required by your charter, and then a separate resolution that actually then approved the loan documents. And what I attempted to do was to combine those two documents into the ordinance that is currently before you, and that's what it does. So you're not only authorizing the borrowing of money, you're also approving the loan documents that will be part of this transaction. With that said, we have a problem. Minor one, in that the bank, very late last week, advised us that they were under the impression that the village was preparing the loan documents. And I chuckle because this is the first time ever in my professional career where the borrower or the lender
Doesn't prevent it.
has said, oh, well, we thought the borrower was preparing the loan documents. And I said, no, that's not the case. Because the manager had provided me with the phone number and the contact information for the bank's attorney. And I reached out to him and I said, you know, where are the loan documents? And he said, oh, well, the bank thought you were preparing them. I scratched my head and I go, no, that's, he goes, okay, that's not a problem, because we've told the bank how much it will cost, and that's the $7,500 that's in the closing statement. However, because of the late hour and the Jewish holidays, I am not going to be able to produce the loan documents prior to your meeting next Tuesday. So we still have not seen the loan documents. And that poses an issue. One, they need to be attached to the ordinance, or they need to be attached to a resolution before they can be approved. Either way, they need to be reviewed and attached to a document, whether it's this ordinance or resolution that was done the last time, to be approved. That at first blush wouldn't pose an issue, because we would just continue this ordinance. Since it was advertised, we could continue to time and date certain, which would be your next meeting, the 25th. However, the bank has advised us that the loan rate is only extended till the 21st of this month. So they will have the loan documents, and we will have them reviewed and approved prior to the 21st, but my suggestion is that we may end up having to have a special call meeting for the singular and sole purpose of approving ordinance 2018-04 on second reading. So we would continue and we would continue it to a date and time certain, subject to your calendar, and frankly, we just meet here for all of about 5 minutes, subject to public comment on the ordinance, and approve it, and then all go home. Unfortunately, that is how I believe it's going to have to be done, because the bank thought that the borrower was doing their loan documents, which I find very interesting, but that's a side note. We know what the amortization is, we know what the closing statement is, but we don't know the loan documents.
Let me ask you this. I don't think it's possible, but I'm going to ask just to make sure that we're not wasting everybody's. There's no way to approve this like we do a resolution with pass and adopt, because it's an ordinance, correct?
Because we don't even, if it was in substantially the form attached here too,
Then you'd have something to.
then we'd have something, but since we don't have the loan documents at all, that's my concern, my hesitancy. At this point in time, it would require me to do some significant carving up of the ordinance as currently written to
Right.
give us that.
So if there's no objection from the rest of commission members, can we see if everybody's available? What date? For a 5-minute meeting?
I mean, I think the discussion.
The 20th?
It has, yeah, it could be the 20th. I think that they said, that it potentially would be the loan documents would be ready for review, and I don't anticipate an extended period of time on our behalf to review them. So they said like the 17th, as early as the 17th.
Do you want to make it conservatively on the 18th so we don't have an issue? And will that be a conflict with any meetings that are already being held here? And could we do it at 6:30 maybe?
It's your, let's see.
I'll ask. First of all, is everybody available on the 18th, Tuesday?
Oh, let me turn this
Yes.
back on in a moment.
Yes.
Tuesday the 18th in the afternoon poses a problem for me, because I am the code enforcement special master for a jurisdiction in Broward County. Doesn't mean we couldn't do it. And as long as we do it to date and time certain, it can be done in the morning.
most everybody here,
Yeah.
that won't work for us,
So
so,
it worked for me, I know in the evening, how does that work for you?
The evening on the 19th works for me, Wednesday the 19th.
okay. Wednesday, the 19th, is everybody available on that date?
It's Yom Kippur.
Oh, that's not going to work.
Oh, it is.
Yom Kippur, that's not going
It's
to
Yom
work.
Kippur
Oh,
on
yeah.
Wednesday.
No, that's,
That's not going to
my
work.
wife wouldn't be happy with me.
No.
Thursday, in the evening is also, the 20th is good, as long as it's past sundown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so,
20th.
sundown. Let's see what time sundown is, just to make sure.
We have a Parks and Parkway.
We can meet
park.
anywhere for, it's 5 minutes. We can meet if we have to in the,
Yeah,
Just mention.
it's, take all of 5 minutes.
yeah. I don't have, hold on.
And then
7 o'clock safe for sundown? Not really, 7:30.
Yom Kippur, no, it's not. It's,
well,
What time is sundown?
my,
I'm just
my,
trying
my,
to-
wi- my wife will give me leeway to be here prior to sundown.
sundown,
Okay,
that's
just-
all right
But,
then,
you know,
right.
that's the rest of the community, it's up, you know, that's.
It's
Well,
hard
I'd
work.
like to be respectful of that if I can. It's only going to be 5 minutes. Does everybody have a problem with 7:30 on the 20th? Is that 20th, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 7:30 on the 20th, and if you can find a place for us to meet?
This is open here.
This is open here?
The
Okay.
code meeting was here, but it's canceled, so.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
So we'll
The-
do
The meeting that was canceled, 19.
19th. So on the 20th,
The 20 is
It's
still
open?
Parks and Parkway
Parks and Parkway normally meets
Yeah.
here?
on 20,
Parks and Parkways meet at Village Hall.
over there.
Okay, so we're fine. So how about 7:30, just to be cognizant of everybody, that should be sundown. 7:30 on the 20th for very short meeting.
Could we
That's
do,
fine.
hate to throw this out there, but could we do 8 o'clock?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'll be coming up from Brickell that day, and you know how traffic is, I want to make sure I'm here.
Okay, is 8 o'clock okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 8 o'clock?
All right, and so the appropriate thing would be a motion to continue ordinance 2018-04 to time and date certain of September 20th, 2018 at 8 p.m. Here at Village Hall.
Is there a motion to do so?
I'll make a
Madam-
motion to continue ordinance number 2018-4 to a date certain, which is Thursday, September 20th, here at the log cabin at 8 p.m.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Comment, if I may, I'm sorry. Since we're going to have a new agenda, can we have a revised memo
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that reflects the details?
yeah.
And they did agree that they're not going to charge us anymore since they're making up the loan documents.
That's correct. No, the closing statement that they provided is pretty much as close to being set in stone. And in fact, I would anticipate the actual technical closing of the documents is going to happen that morning, 21st.
Right.
Of the following day, because that's the latest that that the bank is willing to hold the,
Okay.
And- Let us know if there's a
Interest
conflict.
rate.
Let us know if there's a conflict with the time on the 20th being too late for them. Just let us know if that becomes an issue.
I will make sure of that.
Okay.
Yes,
So we don't lose the loan rate.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to 10A, Resolution 2018-24, Grubbs Emergency Services, Village Attorney and then Village Manager.
Resolution 2018-24, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, authorizing the village manager and the village attorney to negotiate an agreement for debris removal and disposal services with Grubbs Emergency Services LLC and providing for an effective date.
Village Manager, do you want to give a brief? I know it was in your, but for the sake of the audience, could you briefly talk about how the proposal went?
Sure. We sent out an RFP for debris disposal services, and we received responses from 3 different companies. Grubbs was one of them, and we evaluated it. And when I say we, the police chief, Commander Walschlager, Cesar Hernandez in Public Works, and myself met and evaluated their credentials, their pricing, all of that. The pricing was pretty similar on most of it. Some were a little higher on some items and a little lower on others. Ultimately, we came to the conclusion that just based on capabilities, on realistic pricing, because we know how it goes up. We just experienced that last year. That Grubbs was the best choice for the village to continue to move forward.
Okay, is there any discussion on this item, or can we go ahead and make a motion?
And the price was?
It's $10 a cubic yard for collection and removal of hauling, $5 a cubic yard for chipping and grinding, $1 a cubic yard for preparation management and segregating at debris management site, $10 a cubic yard for collection and removal from right-of-way hauling to debris management site, then stump removal at $300 each, hazardous stump removal 48 inches or greater at $350, hazardous tree removal 6 inch to 12 inch is $220, hazardous tree removal and various other sizes.
It was basically just the removal portion. How did that compare to this previous year? We know it's more, but...
Yeah, it's considerably more. This year we had, Grubbs made an error last year. They allowed us to piggyback on the Hernando County contract. It came out to the benefit of the village. We paid, I believe it was $3 a cubic yard for removal, whereas most of the county was paying 10 to 15. And so from that perspective, they honored their contract as they should have. And so that was a good thing. But we know that, you know, should this happen again, they've already said that, you know, hey, we're not going to do that again.
So the task for staff, from manager and myself, is to negotiate the final and best offer that we can, if we can get them down a little bit lower, that's obviously what we'll try and do, and then put together the contract and bring it to you at a future commission meeting for approval.
I know that North Miami did something interesting, and I would recommend you look at some of what they had done, because they had a similar issue, and they now had multiple contractors who had to get the better rate. I'm not suggesting we do that, but I am suggesting we look at alternative ways, so in case somebody, which is what happened in many, many, many cities. Every phone call we had with the governor's office was about how the prices went up to the roof. Miami-Dade County took all the employees, everybody else was getting paid more, and we ended up getting the short end of the stick as a county, not as individual cities. We did not, but many other people did. That's why other cities paid 2.5 times the cost, which is why I kept referring to the reserves. So anything you could do to look at some alternative methodologies to keep our costs down, I would be appreciative.
I've heard, we've all heard some horror stories, and part of it is, yes, the state, particularly FDOT, appropriated a lot of the service providers and their equipment to the detriment of the local governments, who otherwise, you know, that's who they were relying upon, and then, you know, ended up paying higher fees, which then the contractors, when it came to start to pick up the local government, said, well, wait a minute, you know, we're getting X dollars from the government, from the state and federal government. We want that same amount, and there is litigation going on out there between some local governments and their contracted waste haulers over some of those issues. So we're aware of that, and we'll do the best we can under the circumstances. But as the manager indicated, Grubbs already knows that they erred on side of to the benefit of the village last year, and they're unlikely to do that again this year as they negotiate moving forward. So.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Johnson Sedell? No?
No, I don't think
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Just in a negotiation, I think one thing that, you know, I'd definitely like to have, for y'all, not I, but for y'all to have a conversation with Grubbs is, I know when we went through the whole debris removal, we had some delays because of equipment breakdowns and the like. So I'd like to see, you know, what kind of assurances we can get from them, some type, you know, if there's any type of, you know, I know in a hurricane you can't forecast everything, but maybe there's something that we can negotiate in there where if the delay is a certain amount of time, we can go ahead and try to claw back some of the cost, because that was a huge issue.
That's what North Miami did. They did a lot of, they put gaps on time frame for removal, also damaging to roadways is one of the issues we had, because they were trying to get any operator they could get in here to work with equipment, and we had a lot of claw damage and things. So they fixed it, but at the same time, that's one of the challenges. So I just encourage you to look at alternative ways in which city has to become very creative in their negotiations. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bilt, did you have a comment?
No.
Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, just in, not necessarily with regard to this contract, but debris removal just in general and the collection site. I really think we need to consider looking outside of the village for that collection site, designated site fix, because we're just so built out and so cramped here that it makes it hazardous, frankly, to have a collection site here within our geographic boundaries. So I hope you consider that, and I don't know if that has an impact on whatever contract is negotiated.
The distance, I guess the distance for putting it will increase the cost, yeah.
Right.
But if it have to be close by as much as possible.
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the other question I had was with regard to the monitoring part of this. We still need to nail that down.
We do. We put out an RFP for monitoring, and there was no responses. And so we need to reissue that as soon as possible, actually, and so to get that nailed down. And so-
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-24?
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and thank you for those waiting for the variance. I appreciate your patience. We'll get there as soon as we can. Resolution 2018-25, donation to North Miami Foundation for Citizen Services. Village Attorney.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is resolution number 2018-25, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, authorizing the donation of $2,500 for fiscal year 2018-19 to the North Miami Foundation for Senior Citizen Services, Inc., and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross, do you want to make the motion to approve, or do you have any comments?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution, which is effectively authorization to issue the check for the donation that was provided for in our budget for 2017-18.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
I third.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, as I was reading the title to the resolution, I caught an error which I believed I had actually already revised. This may not be the updated one, which is in the title to the resolution as well as the body of the resolution, the reference to fiscal year 2018-19 should actually be 2017-2018.
Okay.
And I know that there's a resolution version out there that reflects that, but the appropriate dates are 2017-2018, not 2018-19.
Commissioner Ross, would you like to make the amended motion to?
I make a motion to approve the resolution with the correction of the date.
Thank you. And there's a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 10C, Village Manager. I'm sorry, Village Attorney.
It's resolution number 2018-26, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, honoring 15 years of municipal home rule in the Florida Constitution and committing to an educational initiative to help Floridians understand this beneficial right and providing for an effective date.
Commissioner Ross?
Typo in Floridians, which
Okay.
we'll correct.
Okay, thank you.
I can understand, too.
Commissioner Ross,
So
do you want?
Last month's Florida, thank you. At last month's Florida League of Cities annual conference, we celebrated 50 years of home rule. The voter-approved constitutional amendment that authorizes the municipality to make decisions in the best interests of its local residents. That's what authorizes this city to make decisions that would be different than Ocala or some other city in the state, rather than leaving those decisions to Tallahassee for the entire state to be governed in a certain fashion. We're very protective of that home rule, and I think it's important that we, particularly this year with the elections coming in November, that we engage our residents and talk about the significance of having that ability to make local decisions. I brought some materials back from the League of Cities and to share with the commission and the community, and we'll put it out before the end of the meeting so that people can help themselves to it. And so I'm asking for the commission to support the resolution. I make a motion to approve the resolution 2018-26.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, there's just a couple of typos that just need to be cleaned up, and I'll accept it with it as amended with the cleanup of typos.
Okay, and I just want to make one other comment. The home rule has been under assault basically at the state level, and this is a deep concerning to most individual cities, so I support and thank Commissioner Ross for bringing this forward. With that in mind, with the amended, can we go ahead and vote and approve?
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0. Resolution 2018-27.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is resolution number 2018-27, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and Jenny Rosano to provide senior exercise classes at Burke Recreation Center, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and expend budgeted funds on behalf of the village and providing for an effective date.
Village manager, I know you had one correction, I think was the clerk's name changed?
We did.
We already changed it? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
We'll correct that.
Okay, this is a contract with Silver Sneakers program at the rec center. Silver Sneakers is one of these programs that will really benefit seniors, and we are trying to increase our senior programming. This is different, and we've given you a new memo on this. This is different than our normal programming. Typically, we have a 70-30 split with the teacher of the programming or the agency programming. In this particular instance, Silver Sneakers is reimbursed by insurance companies at a rate of $2 each. So it really doesn't behoove the village to, take 30% of their $2 at this point. There's no really benefit to us for that. But it is going to be staffed. It will be during times when we're staffed, so there won't be a cost to the village. And it'll still be an additional benefit and additional programming that we can provide for our residents.
Okay, are there any questions for the manager?
Yes, so Article 2 then does not apply. 2.1,
Article 2.
fees and compensation.
Did you get a new one? They gave a new one.
Is there a new, maybe I haven't got the new one.
Well, we have a new memo,
A new memo,
but we
yeah.
don't have a new resolution.
So, okay, no, I see what you're saying,
In the-
Commissioner Bill.
In a new contract.
In the
And so,
contract.
or section 2.1, under Article 2, this is our standard contract, so that would not be applicable.
And the subsequent sections of
2.2.
2 will be renumbered.
Okay.
And I guess it also have to say, instructor shall not charge any participant for any, oh, that's okay, so they still can charge $2, that's
Correct.
fine.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, great, okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve as, I'm sorry, another comment?
Just have a question
Sure.
about that. So that very sentence that Commissioner Bilt was reading, instructors shall not charge any participant for any other services not contained in this contract. I realize this is the standard that we've kept.
This
and we
is,
try to use the same one for every vendor, but I'm trying to understand the rationale, and this contract is, the standard contract is for the instructor to come and do work here according to what's outlined here. But in the case of a personal, like, if they wanted to do personal attention, someone wanted to engage the same instructor for added classes or some other form of therapy, why would we not allow that?
But that's,
I mean,
I see what you're saying.
yeah.
But that's not included in this. It's not covered under this contract, so they could,
Yeah.
I think.
I think this paragraph might prohibit that.
On 2.2, is that, okay.
Or it would be new 2.1. I think that it's a matter of if the program that is being put out there, which the village staff went out and looked for, is a certain type of program, then that's what the agreement covers in the Silver Sneakers. If Ms. Rosano wanted to then contract or enter into a separate agreement with a particular individual who otherwise is part of the Silver Sneakers exercise class program to do something additional, that would be between her and that individual. We're not.
This wouldn't prohibit that?
This wouldn't prohibit it, but it also doesn't cover it.
Right.
So that would be completely between themselves, because again, you can, but it really starts getting into micromanaging,
Yeah.
individual professional trainers.
So then the other issue that I think needs to be clarified is the resolution itself, towards the end says, and to expend budgeted funds on behalf of the village. I think that perhaps we need to substitute that phrase to say that we're waiving the fees.
I don't think, I have a question on that, because I don't think that's what we're getting, is we still have to expend funds because somebody has to be there to work.
That is
So,
correct.
I don't think that
I
needs.
mean, to the extent that that you're expending funds for staff to be there, to
Electricity,
supervise the
all that
program,
stuff.
you are expending budgeted funds, you're adding an additional program. The manager's indicated doesn't anticipate that would be any additional cost because staff would already be there. And a bunch of caution, you've given yourself some leeway if you need to make a budget transfer to cover that additional cost if that it becomes necessary. It doesn't have to be there. I would view it as an additional safeguard.
Okay.
It doesn't affect the agreement one way or the other. It provides the manager the leeway that if there's need to expend budgeted funds, he has the ability to do so.
And then the other part of it, which is about, the fees that are usually in charge to rent the space. Do we just not stay silent on that, or, I mean, it seems like we're missing a piece.
You mean in the resolution
Yeah.
there? Okay.
Do we charge when, let's say somebody has a Zumba class, we get a percentage of it?
We get
right?
a percentage of
We
it,
don't
yes.
charge them for renting the space, do we?
That's what the percentage covers,
Yeah.
really. And
So we're giving up our percentage, which would be to rent all the space because it's for the seniors.
Because this is such a
Nominal.
low-cost program.
Yeah.
The Silver Sneakers is really paid for by people's individual personal insurance, or if they want to come in and just pay $2.
It's a $2 fee,
It's
right.
a $2 fee, so.
Yeah, because the administrative fees alone on that, trying to collect back your 30 cents on your $2
Yeah.
is,
It's not worth it, but it's still, for the village to try and encapsulate at 30% of that.
do we have to, since it's almost a donation in kind, is there anything we need to do?
No.
Okay, I just want to clarify, yeah.
The Commissioner Ross's comment is actually appropriate. It just it's I don't want to say it really is a wash because
Okay.
you're deciding to
Forgo the
provide this as
administrator, yeah.
just an additional service to
Yeah.
your seniors.
Okay. Is there a motion or any other further comment? Okay, is there a motion to pass resolution 2018 sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
27.
17?
With the
Amended.
revision to the agreement as instructed by staff, by the commission to staff.
I
Is it-
so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we have another contract, village attorney, 2018-28 contract for yoga program.
A resolution, resolution number 2018-28, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and Janice Angel for the provision of a yoga program at Ed Burke Recreation Center, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and expend budget funds on behalf of the village and providing for an effective date.
Are there any questions or comments, and manager? Would you care to?
This is another class that we'll be offering at the rec center. This is for a yoga program, in addition to the current one we have. And it is this standard 70-30 split that we have normally done, and everything else seems to be pretty standard on this one.
Okay, Commissioner Ross.
As of the time that the agenda was given to us and what's posted on the website, there's no information about their insurance. So that's my question.
That was in the back.
Let's see.
The insurance was not provided.
Huh?
The insurance was not provided.
Please speak in your mic. Speak in your microphone.
The insurance was not provided with the
It
agreement.
is, it will be provided.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, can
Yeah, it
we
has
pass
to
it
be.
conditional upon that? Can we, if we have the consensus of the commission, can we do it conditional upon?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Article 6 requires them, so
Yeah.
if they don't, then the agreement won't be executed.
Okay, thank you, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-28, contract for yoga program at the Ed Burke Recreation Center?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-28, contract for yoga program at Ed Burke Recreation Center.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. And I thank the patience of all the folks who waited.
Wait, what?
Well,
One more.
10F.
I'm sorry, one more.
Soccer.
One more.
Academy.
Youth soccer program, almost. Okay, village attorney. Where is it?
This is the laydown, resolution number 2018-29, a resolution of the mayor and village commission of the village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the village of Biscayne Park and David Ocampo for the provision of a soccer program at Ed Burke Recreation Center, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and expend budgeted funds on behalf of the village, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Village manager?
Yes, as you can tell, East has been working overtime this this month. This is a contract for Youth Soccer Academy program at Ed Burke. And it's another opportunity to present, you know, additional programming for our residents. On resource impact, one thing that they have asked for is because with the Soccer Academy program, there's always startup fees for equipment during the first year. So they've asked for an 80-20 split from the village during the first year. After that, we'd go up to our normal 70-30. And so that's something that we want to, you know, I want feedback from the commission on. But that was East's recommendation, was to go with that. So I want to give that.
Do you know what the total cost estimation of what the difference of the 5% would be? I mean, the 10%?
It would depend on how many kids signed up for it, quite honestly. So,
Estimate of any kind?
it would be a complete and utter guess, and I really wouldn't want to venture that.
Okay.
So,
Because I can't imagine if it's 100.
it shouldn't, I doubt it would be
$100, you're
substantial. I
talking,
think- yeah.
you're talking $10 a kid. So, you know, 20 kids. I just want to give an idea of what we're giving up is a couple $100.
Probably so, but again, that's, you know, if they show up with 200 kids, then I don't think that's likely, but.
And my only concern was the soccer
don't have the
field. That's it, but I know we already have money in the budget for resodding, so that's my only concern with the
Yeah, we
number
should
of
be fine
students.
there.
And do we have some issue if they had that many kids, or we had it be so successful that it was impacting the field, that we could adjust that? for-
That's a problem that we would love to have.
I know, I'm
So-
just hoping. I'm feeling honored here. Okay, any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Ross?
Just the same issue about the insurance that's not present.
Okay, and we will get that provided.
Assuming the commission votes to approve it as recommended, the approval of the resolution should be along with a direction to staff to modify paragraph 2.1 to provide for, in the first year, it would be an 80-20 split as opposed to the standard 70-30 split.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Actually, 2.1 does say that.
But
I don't have,
I'm sorry,
But
you did get it, so.
I'm missing the agenda item, so I apologize, so.
I think it just needs to stay
But
for the
I
first year.
think it needs to be, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, one at a time, Commissioner Johnson Sardella.
I think it needs to be clear that it's going to adjust, because I think the way it reads now, it's saying it's an 80-20 split, and I don't think I see anywhere where it's saying it's just for the first year, and it'll adjust back to the 70-30.
Yeah, could we adjust the 2.1 to reflect that?
Yes, that's.
Which is
that
what
would
you
be-
stated, yeah.
It would be just for the first year, and then
Right.
after that, it would be for the second year, and then any future years, it would go back to the go to the standard 730 split. So we would just add a new paragraph or a new sentence to section 2.1 to say second year and all years thereafter,
Right.
standard split.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-29 as amended?
I make a motion to approve 2018-29 as amended with regard to Article 2.
Point one? Yep. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Apologize for those waiting for the variance so long. Okay, we are now on
The variance?
getting there, okay. Thank you. We are now on new business, which is variance application for 1 Forseca at 630 Northeast 116th Street for new business. I'm going to turn this over to the attorney.
Yes. This item falls under the definition of a quasi-judicial item. So as a result, anyone testifying in this matter, we're going to go ahead and swear them in. I don't know, I'm assuming that the standard practice is that Mr. Hearn, my predecessor, would swear in the witnesses as opposed to the clerk. Some places do it differently. I have no problem. If you are here on item, a variance application PV 18-0003, item 12A on the agenda, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth regarding this matter? The witness has been sworn.
Thank you. Do you want to go, village manager, since planning and zoning has actually recommended we approve this variance, could you please go through this for us briefly?
Sure. This item was taken to Planning and Zoning. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of variance PV 18-0003. The owners have applied for essentially to allow their property to be built 2 inches into the setback. It's just over the line of the setback, I believe. And so they've paid the required fees and application and have jumped literally through all the hoops. This has been properly advertised. The notices of hearings were sent to all residents in a radius of 500 feet. And so it's really up to the commission if you would like to move ahead with this and grant their variance.
And I'd allow, may we have you come forward, and if there's anything you'd like to add, please?
Yes, I will give you a brief description of what this is. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem, but we are doing an addition, and I hope everybody's...
Excuse me, sir, if you could state your name for the record and your relationship to the property.
Mark Campbell, architect, 373 Northeast 92nd Street, Miami Shores, Florida. I'm here, the architect representing the client, my client.
Thank you.
You may have to bring the mic if you're going to bring it to us, and that way we'll get sound effects as well as picture effects. Thank you.
We have kind of a unique situation with the way the floor plan. It wouldn't be a problem that by the plan case, we are doing an addition, which is going to be attached to the rear of the building. At this corner right here is our trouble corner. Normally, if this roof here and this roof here were the same height, it wouldn't be a problem, but we have a situation where the existing condition is set lower. And we have like a V shape right here, and we're having to tear off the end of the house to allow us to have access in where we're doing our addition. So this is an unusual corner here. If this was a flat edge with a matching roof, I could set it off and set it back or set it forward. But because I have a tie beam that goes on top of this roof, if I set it off 2 inches, then I'm setting it all in, and then all of the walls are going to be non-aligned, and I'm setting this tie beam, which supports the roof, is going to be offset from the beam where it's being supported by. And it's a 2-inch relief. The building itself has already been granted approval by the zoning board. This building has always been 2 inches in the setback. The building itself from originally built. We would just like it to be flush with this. Originally, we got a 10-foot setback. The contractor brought up the fact that this is going to be a problem that would be very difficult to resolve if we don't have it flush.
Thank you, and if you don't mind, thank you so much. In case there's any questions.
Question. Yeah, Mark, in your letter, you're asking for a 2% setback, but you actually mean 2 inches.
2% is 2% is 2 inches of 10 feet?
Yeah, it's not. It's not, 2% is more than 2 inches. I don't know if it makes any difference. 10 feet is 120 inches, right?
So it'd be,
So 10% of that is...
12 inches.
2.2.
1.2.
Is that right?
I went to law school. to
less
avoid
than
these math
2%.
questions.
Less than 2%.
Is it less than 2%?
Less than 2%.
Okay, if 2%
Because
is...
I'm basing it on 10, it would be actually...
Yeah, okay, whatever it is, I think it's, I just don't want to ask you to say, oh my God, we made a
Yes.
mistake, we actually need another quarter inch or something.
The best way to answer that question, which is an appropriate, was the requested variance is 2 inches off of the otherwise required setback of 10 feet.
That's correct.
Right.
So they're asking for a 9.10 inch setback,
9 foot 10 inch.
9 foot 10 inch.
Yes.
Sorry, yes, 9 foot 10 inch, where otherwise 10 foot setback would be required.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is, 9 point what?
9.10, I'm sorry,
9
9
feet, 10
9
inches.
feet,
10 is
nine-
what they have.
9 feet, 10 inches.
It's, again, it's a small amount, but you really need more than 2, you need more than 2 inches, you need 2.4 inches, right? Right,
The budget man had all the answers.
so you
over
need
there.
2.4,
He knows
so
it for
should we
17.
change it to 2, so that there is no hassle ever about it?
That's,
Well,
change
it's
it to
2
2
inches is what we're looking for.
Or change it for 2%?
Yeah,
I don't want you to underneed what, you know, 2.5 inches doesn't make any
I
difference.
think the number should just be exact. If the
just
setback
two-
is
yeah,
10
2 inches is
feet
what it
and
is.
and
It's
it's
2
at
inches is what
9
it says.
It is
feet,
2
10
inches.
inches,
Okay.
Okay,
then
if you're willing to go with
2
2
inches.
inches is fine.
Okay. Is there any comments or discussions by commissioners regarding this?
No, seems-
Commissioner Ross?
Very brief. Just very brief, the cover memo does say P and Z recommends approval, but what I've seen in other variance requests is the minutes of the P and Z attached. And I went through the minutes that were early on in our agenda, the ones that were presented, but this issue wasn't brought up there. I trust what you're saying, but it'd be nice to have the minutes.
We can, I'll ask the clerk to send the minutes to everyone tomorrow from the P&Z.
And then, effectively, because I imagine this is going to be a document recorded in public records to adopt the variance, but we don't have a document like that in front of us.
You don't have to. It is not a requirement that there be something recorded in the public records of the county to evidence this. You would keep these records in the normal course of business as the village, and that would be sufficient. There is no requirement that you do so. That's a question whether or not the property owner wishes to take it upon him or herself to record a copy of the minutes or the approval letter or whatever is the official document that the village would issue to them, granting the variance application and taking upon themselves and recording it in the public record, so it's in their chain of title.
Okay. I just want to make sure you have the right paperwork that you're going to need and you don't run into some other problem down the road. My understanding is that there are 4 points, 4 conditions that need to be met, or there has to be a finding that those 4 conditions being met.
That's correct.
And so I'm prepared to make a motion and present those findings.
It is a public hearing, and so you do have to open it up in case anyone wants to comment or testify. So
They need to be
before you-
sworn in, though, correct? And there was nobody,
And-
there was
well,
nobody
if-
who's sworn in.
If anyone who comes to speak that hasn't been sworn in, we will swear them in
Okay.
prior. So at this time, it would be appropriate to, assuming the applicant's representative is finished with his presentation, it would be appropriate to open up the public hearing to the public.
All right, to the public, does anyone like to speak and like to be sworn in on this issue? No? Yes? No? Okay.
Close the
So
public
close
hearing.
for public hearing. Is there a motion, and then we'll do a roll call? Is that the appropriate way to do this?
As Commissioner Ross points out, the appropriate motion would be that based upon something to the following, that based upon the evidence and testimony presented here this evening, the commission finds that the applicant has proven by competent substantial evidence that they meet the criteria in the village code to be entitled to the variance or that you are granting or denying, or that, as the case may be.
So I make a motion that to approve the variance based on findings that the request, that there are special circumstances or conditions that affect the property which are such that a strict application of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of land. That the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right of the petitioner. That the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the territory in which the property is situated. And that the variance proposed is a minimum variance which makes possible the reasonable use of the property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call for this, correct? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Trupman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Commissioner Butte,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson Sadella,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross.
Yes.
Thank you. Variance passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you for your patience as well. Okay, the next item is 12B. Let me see how we're getting on time. Just want to make sure, do a quick time check. We're at 9 p.m. We're good. Okay.
Hey, Mayor,
Mhm.
can we jump in here? Paul from GMS just told me there was one section that he wanted to talk with the commission about earlier, and we didn't get to it, where we need to request to move some money from the reserve to our general fund for the next couple of months.
Okay.
And so, Paul, would you like to come up? Do you mind us jumping in here for that?
Does anybody have an objection?
No.
No. Thank you.
Yes, this didn't make it on the agenda, but I mentioned in my previous reports that I would be coming back to you with regular cash updates, and if we needed to, it was about 3 or 4 meetings, maybe months ago, we discussed a policy for how we would handle this process, and I told you that we would keep no more than $250,000 in our checking account for obvious insurance reasons, if where that's applicable, but also when it was time to pull up revenue like we did last year, we would bring that to you. And so the cash flow analysis that our staff does basically just looks at literally the last 4 or 5 deposits and the last 4 or 5 check runs and projects out whether it's time. It's time. I'd like to ask that $250,000 be authorized to be moved up into the cash account from the revenue or from the reserve account. And if these projections look, I think they're fairly accurate, but they're obviously an estimate. If at the next meeting it's not enough or it's too much, I'll let you know. So I just wanted to bring that to you. We don't have a formal policy that says it's a board, it's a commission action item to remove from reserves, but as a professional courtesy of operations, I'd like to ask for permission.
Okay. Commissioners' comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
So earlier this week, I forwarded our policy for fund balances, which was resolution, I don't remember, 12? It's 2012 through 2012. And part of that fund balance policy says that we are going to maintain a reserve 15% of the next year's budget.
Okay.
Will this shifting, or will this withdrawal move us below 15%?
I would interpret the revenue in the hold account for your bank loan as available cash in that same spirit. So that wouldn't exceed it. You would still have over $400,000.
Anything else? No. Okay. I guess we have to make a motion would be the best way to do this?
And so then theoretically, after the 21st, we will have $200,000 more in our cash.
And you'll have that, yes.
We'll have another $200,000.
So if you take my interpretation of what your reserves are, it's even more solid to say it that way, yes.
Any comments?
No.
No.
Okay, no for me as well. Okay, is there a motion to, or consensus? I don't know if you have any motion or consensus for this, since it's moving money out of the reserves?
Motion.
Okay.
Thank
Is there a
you.
motion to move $250,000 out of the reserves into the general funds?
Operating account. Yes.
Operating account, to cover, I guess it's the first quarter would be the correct term
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that, for fiscal year 2019.
I make a motion to move 250,000, do we say?
Yes,
Out
sir.
of the reserves into the operating account.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Or should I be saying more?
I'm sorry.
No,
Is that word correctly?
I would, this is for funding to cover expenses in what will be the new fiscal year, correct?
It'll be the last week of September and take us into the middle of October.
Okay. Then the
So
Does that
it's
last, does the
essentially a
last
next-
week matter?
I was going to suggest that if it
Okay.
was to the effective October 1st, the new year, but since it's going to cover
Right.
part of the end of this fiscal year, the motion as stated is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, the expenses into October are still prior year expenses
Okay,
in most cases.
Thank you. So there was a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Do you need me, Chris?
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 12B is mine, so I'll go ahead and start on that. This is discussion on the property located at 826 Northeast 121st Street. I'm not going to go through word by word what I wrote in the memo, but what I'd like to highlight are a few points. 826 Northeast 121st, since I've taken office, this has been a property that's been an eyesore for years. The owner has not taken care of the property. We had talked about it previously, but that was under a previous attorney, so what I've asked to do here is pretty simple. I'd like to spend a nominal fee, which is about $125, I believe, but I put $150 just to make sure, to obtain the updated title search to determine who the primary lien holders are on the property currently, and then send a letter with notification to the primary lien holder that the village intends within 30 days to either A, having our building official work with Miami-Dade County's Unsafe Structure Board to deem the structure unsafe and to tear it down, and/or initiate foreclosure proceedings on the property. Both is likely to trigger the primary lien holder to take action, and I'm going to allow the attorney to expand after I finish a little background on this property. Right now, I believe it has $42,000 worth of fines on it that have accumulated. There may be more, but that's what we were able to get so far. We've been trying to act on this property for many years with the property owner to no avail. I do understand that the cost, and I'll allow the attorney to expand on that, there may be a cost to the village, and that's something we haven't necessarily put in our fund, but I'd like to see if we could do that in this fiscal year rather than next. But it may lean into next fiscal year, so it's not in the budget. So I'm going to ask the attorney to talk about this, but I know there's two avenues to go, and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Herron. But there's two avenues. One is condemnation, and the other is foreclosure. Depending on the cost of one or the other, might determine which is best for us to move forward with, both in timing as well as cost. And with that, I'll turn it over to the attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, there are a number of code violations on this particular piece of property that have, long outstanding and continue to accrue fines for the failure of the property owner to bring the property into compliance. As of today's date, rough calculations is about $42,000 and accruing an outstanding code enforcement liens on this particular piece of property. One for violation of the landlord permit registration requirements that the village has, failure to maintain the exterior of the building, failure to comply with the minimum housing requirements, to the extent that it's vacant, that they failed to board and secure the the structure, and there are some life safety issues related to it as well. Unfortunately, every municipality that I've been involved in has a 826 Northeast 121st Street property. And sometimes there's just nothing that can be done short of initiating more onerous to the property owner proceedings against them. Code enforcement is based upon the concept as set forth in state statute. There's some inherent limitations, and it's really based upon the concept that the property owner will eventually bring the property into compliance. And obviously that's not the case here. So when that occurs, the local government really has several options which are somewhat limited or costly. And that is, theoretically, you could begin, one thing that's not listed here, and it came to me as we were is you could begin legal proceedings against the property owner to secure a mandatory injunction. In other words, you would go to court, you'd tell the court that you have these outstanding code violations. The code violations are prima facie evidence that they're not compliance with state statute. There's presumed to be harm to the village and its residents for the failure of the property owner to comply, and then you obtain an injunction against them, and then you have what's called a rule to show cause, that if they don't comply with the injunction, the judge could theoretically, and he would ask us to incarcerate the people for failure to comply with the injunctions, contempt of court. I'm not so sure that based upon what I know about this property that would be a realistic option, because they're not local. This is a vacant piece of property. And so the other alternatives are the ones that Mayor, you mentioned, which is initiating not condemnation, unsafe structure proceedings against the property owner. But that requires, under the charter of Miami-Dade County, the county is the one that controls that process. So one of the things in determining essentially what the cost of that process would be meeting with your new, soon-to-be working planning and building consultant, Calvin Giordano and Associates, as to what are the dynamics of the process that they, as the designated building official, would have to take to initiate that process, and then find out at what point does potentially the county take over the entire process. But yes, there would be, for lack of a better description, prosecution costs from both Calvin Giordano's standpoint as well as from your legal staff's standpoint to pursue that administrative remedy, which ultimately would lead to either one of two things taking place. The superior lien holders, the mortgage, the bank, coming in and saying, whoa, wait a minute, we didn't know that this property was in such disrepair. Before you knock it down, we want to come in and repair it or take over the property. Or ultimately, the Unsafe Structures Board issuing an order authorizing the demolition of the structure if it does in fact meet the unsafe structure definition under the county code. Alternatively is to initiate foreclosure proceedings on the code enforcement lien. But in all likelihood, subject to obtaining the title search, that title search is going to indicate that there's one or more mortgages on the property that have priority over those of the village. So we could initiate that process and trigger, as you indicated, Mayor, a requirement or forcing the hand of the mortgage holders to get involved with this property, and again, hopefully take it over and essentially assert their priority lien interest over that of the village, but at the same time making someone now responsible for bringing the property up to code. So theoretically, both of those processes would end up in the same scenario where the priority mortgage holder or lien holder would step in and take steps to abate the code violations and bring the property into compliance, or work with us to ultimately demolish the structure if it's, you know, cost prohibitive to make the repairs as opposed to demoing it and then selling off the property as vacant property. Unfortunately, that takes time and money. The first step in the process, either one, would be to ascertain who has an interest in the property, because under either process, the first step that we would have to do is to put them on notice that we're either initiating a foreclosure proceeding by filing a list pendants and sending out notice to them, or alternatively begin the unsafe structures process, which again requires notice to anyone who hasn't or who may have an interest in the property. And the only way to determine that is by getting a property lien search.
I guess what I was looking for as well was step one, starting with the lien search. That's $125, $150.
That's correct.
Getting a letter out to the primary lien holder with our intent to either foreclose or correct me if my turn, is to demolish the unsafe structure. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
And then starting in that process, and then see where we are, come back in September, and then we can, if we need to figure out by then, the manager and you and the staff can decide the best direction to go if we have to continue forward with that. That is kind of what I'm looking for with direction with the commission, if they don't have any objection or any comments. I'll open up for discussion.
Mr. Hearn, at your direction, had obtained a title search some time back. The problem is that the further away you get from that title search, it becomes stale, and you can't rely upon it for purposes of sending out notice. And that's why the first step would be to update that existing.
And my understanding, they went out to the property owner, not to the lender, correct? The letter that Mr. Attorney Hearn, former Attorney Hearn.
I don't believe that they. I don't know. I can't. I don't know with certainty. But certainly, my suggestion would be to send out a notice to everyone listed on that title, on that title report.
Okay, and I'm looking for the commission's support on this item, and allowing the attorney and the village manager to move forward on this.
I would think it would make sense to spend $150. Well, at least we know who the primary lien holders are, and we've got some, and then we can notify them.
I'm recommending two steps. The first, in what I have in here, is the first step is to move towards doing the lien search, which is what you just said, Commissioner Bild. And then secondly, to have a letter go ahead and drafted to all the parties involved for their intention to move forward with either and or both. And then see what response we get, and have both the attorney and the manager come back next meeting and tell us where we are. And at that point, we can make a decision. Hopefully by then as well, they will have looked up the process and spoke to Giordano as well. The process of, I'm sorry if I'm using the incorrect term, but demolition or condemnation. I'm not sure what the official, demolition or unsafe structure.
Demolition of an unsafe structure.
Thank you, demolition of an unsafe structure. And then have come us back with the price differential so we know the cost that would impact us. That's what I'm looking for.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, yeah, you've got my consensus. I agree.
Okay, so is there a motion? I'm
need to
sorry,
make a
Commissioner
motion
Ross, go ahead.
or discussion?
Sure, I'm sorry, open for discussion.
Okay, so when I reviewed this item with the manager, I thought it would be important to have the work that's already been done on this property. And yeah, I did come across some billings from last October where Attorney Hearn was talking to the manager about this property, but I don't know what came of those conversations, really. So I think it would be beneficial to have that information.
Absolutely. And I don't know, did Attorney Hearn speak with you, Mr. Herron, about that?
Yes. I spoke to apparently
Attorney
Mr.
Dunkiel.
Hearn,
Yeah, it was Attorney Dunkiel.
asked Mr. Dunkiel to work on this, and what Mr. Dunkiel did was in fact order that title search, and that's where it ended.
There was no letter?
No letter appears to have gone out. I will confirm that.
I thought there had been one.
I'm not aware of one, but that's the answer to that question or that concern can be remedied very easily by me just placing a call on Mr. Dunkill tomorrow morning. And
Yeah,
and
my
I'll do so.
understanding, and I don't know if it's a fact, what was stated was that there was a letter that went out and there was no response, and I believe that was to the owner. I don't know if it was sent to the lender. That I'm not sure about. That's my understanding, but that doesn't, until you get it directly from Attorney Dunkill.
Okay.
Personally, I would feel
Commissioner
better
Ross?
starting off new, knowing this way. We've sent it out to the lender, we've sent it out to the owner, we know it's been done, and it's been done right, and
It's a nominal time. It's a
a
letter.
nominal time, and spend the additional money to get actually up to date. It could have changed. I'm not sure when Andrew actually did any work on this, but in 60 days, it could have changed.
Well, and I appreciate the information that Commissioner Ross has provided. The time entry is for 11 months ago. So whatever
That's too long.
information is
too
certainly
long.
would be stale. We're back to where I said we need to, if we're going to send out and begin the process, we need to start with getting that updated title so we know who to send out the letters to.
And I
And
think
also-
doing that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Quick question, I don't know, we're talking about the title search, and I don't know if what was included in that search is also, I don't know if, we've never discussed a tax lien. Is there a tax lien on this
I
property
believe
at
not.
all?
No, there's no tax liens as far as that we're aware
There's
of.
no tax lien.
Okay.
The tax certificates have been purchased, I think, by the mortgage holder from what I looked up.
Right, because I was trying to find it here.
We would order, and because I talked to a colleague of mine as to what, this is something he does a lot, exactly what would be the product that,
Right.
and he said a foreclosure report, and that's
Okay.
what we would ask for. And it would list anyone and everyone who may have an interest, whether it's by something, a title of record, recorded mortgage, or tax certificates. It
Right.
will list everyone.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, just the timing of it, after this October 23rd, 2017 entry, there was recorded in the public record a release of lien from the village.
And that was a
It
duplicate.
says the Village of Biscayne Park inadvertently duplicated the following property lien, and so I guess we were correcting an error.
It was an error we found.
And,
Mhm.
but I hope that didn't release, it only released the duplicate, not all of it.
That was the intent. I can double check that, but I'm sure
The
that that's,
title
Yes,
search
yes,
will-
that
the
will-
title search will
that
tell us
will-
that.
And that will help us also moving forward to make sure any current liens, because I know there's been several violations subsequent to the last lien that was filed, so,
And there are some hard costs involved as well that we'll have to tabulate. The cost of public works going and, boarding up the building, the wood
I think
we
that's, I think
purchased,
that's
all
on there. I think what's not on there is the bee removal,
Yes.
and there's some other, yeah,
I thought
so
that was all the code violations.
maybe,
Hard-
well, if you could,
hard costs.
could you make sure that all the code violations that we currently have and that are on the property are up to date, so that when we, after the lien search or before the lien search, either way, whatever you all deem appropriate?
Yes.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
just my comment for the discussion item is, I think it's important for us to get an accurate assessment of the property, and the status of the liens. I don't feel comfortable with moving forward. I mean, if it's an unsafe structure, we will have to invest money in, and it's not cheap, and it's not free. So if that determination is made, then we're gonna have to commit the dollars to
Agreed.
to bring it down. I don't think that the village should be in the business of owning property. So I would not recommend that we go the foreclosure route. And, if we can just bring the people, the owners or the lien holder in to take responsibility, that would be
Ideal.
that would be ideal. But we have to be careful what we're going to commit to. Bringing down a structure, a two-story structure like that, it's going to take some dollars, so.
I do understand, it's about, I'm going to guess at 10 to 15 grand. I don't think this is a nominal cost, but I will say this. I think if you've been in the property or been anywhere near the property, this is an unsafe structure. I will be shocked if the building, I'm not making a determination. I would suggest that be made by a building official, which I am not. But what I'm suggesting is I think it's pretty apparent to anybody who's had to live around that structure, walk around that structure. It is just in disrepair. I mean, you can see I've heard from neighbors, you can, I don't know how they know, but apparently you can even see through the roof. So what I'm suggesting at this point is that it's the alternative to doing nothing is also unsafe. So I want us to act appropriately with the minimal cost to the village to get the most fastest remedy possible. I'd like to leave that up to the experts, not me, to do that, but I would like to move forward on starting that process. So I'm going to ask, if I may, is there any further discussion on this, Vice Mayor, or?
No, there's
Okay.
nothing further from.
So I would like to make, once again, I would like to see if there's a motion, if somebody's willing to make a motion. If not, I'll make it, to move forward with the nominal fee of the $150 to do an foreclosure report, figure out where we are, and also to ask the village manager and village attorney to look into both foreclosure as well as unsafe structure and come back with a plan for us on how to best proceed to get this property in compliance.
Did I not make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, you did.
I thought I did.
I'm so sorry, you did in the phone.
Then we discussed it some more, but I believe that was the motion. My motion is that we spend $150 and then have our attorney, so we know who in fact owns the property, and then have the attorney go ahead and write a letter to the, everybody who's involved with it, letting them know we're thinking about either having it condemned or foreclosing.
And then we'll, in the
And then we
meantime,
can
we'll
go from there.
report, yeah, we'll then work with staff to get, I understand what the
Because
idea
we're not
here
committing,
is,
when we send them a letter, we're not committing ourselves.
is the village wants the most bang for its buck.
Right.
And as quickly as possible,
How
right.
to go forward with this property.
Quickly is not the important thing, because it's gone on so long. And I think my thought is, it would probably, if the lien holder doesn't want the property, if he doesn't, foreclosing is the easiest way to go.
And before we even incur that
We don't
that
know.
expense, I will make a call to Mr. Hearn and Mr. Dunkiel to find out how far they've gotten, so we're not duplicating and we're not charging the village again for something that may have already been
But
done.
we're going ahead with our, I think, the least expensive thing, which is $150. And truthfully, it may, if we go to the same company, they may charge us less, who knows? And then spending a couple of hours of your time sending out the letters. And then at least we know where we stand and we know what condition the building's in.
Okay. I'm sorry, there's a motion on the floor. I just want to make sure. There's been a motion on the floor. I just want to know if there's a second to that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now I'll hold for comments. Yes, Commissioner Ross.
So isn't the village within its rights to require that if the property owner is not taking care of the property, that the lien holder has to come in and take care of the property?
Well, no. Yes and no. That's a, as I indicated, as I started, code enforcement, well, let's assume we initiate the code enforcement process and we cite the lien holder, the mortgage holder. So we start the process all over again. We impose, we take them, there's a determination that they're in violation of the village code, a fine is assessed, and they continue to ignore the notice of violation and the fine that's in the order of the code board, and it just continues to accrue as it currently is. The code enforcement system has no built-in system to ensure compliance unless it's voluntary, other than doing what's being discussed here, initiating some additional action that is designed to get the lien holder's attention. Because as probably most of you know, certainly those who deal in real estate, every mortgage, certainly commercial mortgage or institutional lender that I've ever seen, has a clause in their mortgage that says that if their mortgage interest is somehow impaired, they have the right to accelerate and begin foreclosure proceedings independent of anything else. And that's the concept that we're trying to achieve here, is that by putting the lien holders, the mortgage holder, on notice, it will invoke that process and get them to come forward and accept responsibility for either foreclosing themselves and getting compliance, or getting compliance, period. But absent that enforcement process being initiated and finding out who those individuals are, and in order to be able to issue them a notice of violation, we're stuck. stuck in the mud. We're just spinning the wheels. Fines is accruing, but the current owner, who's the one who the code enforcement case was initiated against, is just ignoring.
If, in fact, there's a lien pending on the owner, does the lien also, it's not a homesteaded property, because I was living there, does the lien not also apply to all properties that they own?
Yes, real and personal property,
Whether it be
theoretically.
even a corporation, so they
Correct.
theoretically
Yep.
couldn't sell anything else of theirs, maybe, or, but I think this would get their attention.
Just for the
That's
record,
idea.
my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that and I'm sorry to interrupt, is that some of the other properties are in the same disrepair as this one is, even though they're not in our city. I'm just stating. That's what I've been told, but I don't know if that to be fact.
So you may be picking up a headache in some other municipality.
Maybe, but at least this way, they know that something's going to happen with this municipality.
That's correct.
And instead of them not doing anything, of course, if they still don't want to do anything, then the other option is, because if we did foreclose, if they are the primary lien holder, we then take that over, that mortgage?
I mean, it's conceivable that a priority lien holder or mortgage holder would say, heck no, we don't want any problems, take it. But frankly, I've never seen that.
Have you ever seen that in your history? No.
That's not normally what happens. They would step in and say, wait a minute, I'm not going to allow my security interest to be impaired.
Right.
I'm going to assert my priority lien
And
rights.
get them to do something.
And
Right.
that's where we're starting to get some movement finally.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The next item is 12D, that's also my item. I'm sorry, 12C, sorry. This is regarding a discussion on negotiating a fair and favorable contract with North Miami regarding water services. I have done background research subsequent to putting this memo in. So has the village attorney and the village manager. So I'm recommending that the commission direct the village attorney and the village manager to solidify a fair and favorable contract with their longstanding service provider, North Miami, for all water service as expeditiously as possible. We've been receiving water services from North Miami for a long time. Most of our residents are aware that we had a significant increase in our costs. But one of the concerns I've always had is the water pipes, water quality, and water pressure. And making sure that we have an agreement that supports our residents and the quality of water and the pressure water that we receive. Without a written agreement, although they have contracted with us individually, they have not contracted with the village, and the water pipe issue still remains up in the air a bit. So my hope is that, I know there was a contract already put forth by Attorney Hearn. I know it fell due to the 20% hike, is my understanding. But what I'd like to see is Attorney Hearn pick this back up, use what is written and then modify as needed, and work with the attorney to move this forward with North Miami, preferably expeditiously. And I'm going to turn to the village attorney.
I've looked into this at the request of the manager, and there is a draft agreement was prepared and sent to the city of North Miami. I then reached out to the city attorney for the city of North Miami, who's an acquaintance of mine, and he says, "Oh yeah, that agreement," something to that effect. And very quickly his response was that when he met with Mr. Hearn, he very specifically stated to Mr. Hearn that conceptually the city and he, as he understood, would not have an objection to entering into such an agreement. However, if the purpose of the agreement was to remove or reduce the current rates that the city of North Miami was charging the residents of Biscayne Park as provided by law, that they would object to that. And according to him, that's in fact what he did receive from Mr. Hearn, was a provision that the draft that he received had a provision in there that said that the residents of Village of Biscayne Park would pay no more than what the city is charging its own residents. And he said that they object to that because for those who may not know, under state law, one jurisdiction that provides extraterritorial water and utility services is allowed by state law to charge up to a 20% surcharge, and to the extent that that's allowed, I am unaware of any local government that does not charge extraterritorial service recipients that maximum 20%. And according to Mr. Kazu, who's their city attorney, that's how he interprets that, that would be a limitation, and that's where it's gotten stuck.
And my issue, and I'll speak for myself only, and hopefully the other commissioners will provide their input. My position is, if we're paying that 20%, my expectation is we have pipes that aren't 2 inches wide and have a coating in them that make them 1 inch. My understanding is that at some point we have some sort of plan moving us forward to increase both water pressure and water quality and deal with a lot of the what I call leaky pipes. So I would like to see us move forward, and I realize this is a cost associated with it, but they've been providing us service for many years, and the quality of the water has not been an issue. I think it's more of the quantity. There is coloration issues associated with older pipes. There's been a lot of comments. I know I made them for years and years and years. I won't go into my rendition from the commission. I don't know how many years ago was that, Commissioner Anderson? Had it been a long time ago, where I brought in my filters and my color of my water and discussed my staining. I'll leave it at that. So this is an ongoing issue. I just like to see us finally move forward and be able to have a conversation with North Miami that helps us improve the quality of the water that is going to our residents, because eventually they're going to have to deal with the pipe issue.
Have you ever seen any of the water bills to see whether or not they're charging us 20% more or more than 20%?
Well,
they can't.
No, I personally haven't. Right. If they're charging the city more than 20%, they're in violation of state law.
Because they do charge us an out of village or out of municipality.
Right. Yes.
And is in fact the water that we're paying, the minimum charge and everything else, is it the same as what they're, it is. You've seen a North Miami bill? I've never have, so I really can't say. My thought is I'd love to check and see whether or not they're right. That wouldn't take much.
I may be, and I thought that I know that I just mentioned that it was 20% under state
right.
law. According to there's two versions of the agreement. The one that was originally put together by Mr. Hearn and forwarded to Mr. Kazu, right. And one that he revised. I don't have a red line, so right. I don't know, other than this one change that I know, because Mr. Kazu specifically pointed it out to me, is according to the city's North Miami version, which they won't approve anything that does not have this language. It says rates. City agrees that the rates and service availability charges be charged to the village and individual consumers of water service shall be those currently set forth by the city, presently in effect as set forth in Exhibit B. There's not an Exhibit B.
Right.
Or as amended from time to time by the city pursuant to ordinance or resolution adopted in public hearings. The village users shall be charged a 25% surcharge. So we'll confirm, maybe the statute's changed, but the last time I took a look at it, and maybe a number of years ago, was 20, so it may be 25 now. A surcharge on water and sewer utility rates, fees, and charges for potable water payable to the city as more particularly described in Exhibit C. And last but not least, the village user shall be charged a 10% utility tax on water payable to the village as more particularly described in Exhibit D. And again, the utility tax is set by state law.
One of the things I was going to ask, because it is above my expertise and not yours, so if we could make sure that whatever we currently are being charged is within statute, A.
It doesn't exceed the statute.
And doesn't exceed the statute. And two, whatever terminology is in there addresses some of the concerns that I addressed. But I'd like to open up the floor to discussion for all the commissioners to see what input they have on this issue. Any input? Commissioner Johnson-Sardella, I've seen your water pressure.
No,
Sorry, that's an inside joke.
I mean, if we can't get an adjustment in the rate in which we're charged, and we're being charged this premium, then we shouldn't have the service. And so I would, agree in picking this back up and working with them to either evaluate if there's things that, if Biscayne Park has such old pipes and our water service is just subpar, but yet we're paying a premium, you know, I just don't think that that's fair to the residents.
I know when I spoke to the former manager who used to be in charge of the water, I remember asking what I should do to improve my service, and one of the things he mentioned, which was subsequently confirmed by one of the employees who had a map of the village, I'd also like to see terminology in there so we know where our water pipes are. That would be helpful to us, the size of those water pipes, and a mapping that we have as part of that contract. But my understanding is a lot of the water pipes were like 2.5 inches. And there normally would be a 4.5 or 4.25 inch water main. Don't quote me on that. I think also one of the other discussions, and I just want to mention it to folks in the audience, there has been some discussion that we could go to WASA and they would just somehow service us. That is not accurate. There is a small portion on the east part of the village, if I'm not mistaken, that is tied into our pipes, that feeds into our pipes. Commissioner Anderson, is that your understanding as well? Former Commissioner Anderson. If you have no objection, I know he has a lot of background in this, so I'd like to bring him up.
This has been discussed a number of years ago, this Bob Anderson. The way their system is, the pipes are all intertwined and with different
valving systems. On the east side, right? On the east side.
So what happens is where the bulk water from Miami-Dade County that North Miami is purchasing comes in, it gets commingled with everything. So there is no one place that's only getting water from Miami-Dade.
Thank you.
It's all mixed.
Thank you. And yeah, my understanding when I spoke to the person who was in charge of the water division in North Miami, who then became manager many years ago, was that that was for the eastern portion. It was affecting primarily the eastern portion, but most of the western portion. And about, he said 3/4 of the village was pretty much North Miami water. That's what he said to me, and I'm just going to relay that. Having said that, since we are going to have North Miami as our water service, and I don't think that's going to change, I would like to see, and the point of this agenda item is to allow our current attorney to move forward with trying to negotiate that. And since there were so many people involved and we're getting ready to have more elections, I'd like to see that moved a bit expeditiously, because if not, we're going to start with a whole new commission in North Miami and start all over again, and I just don't want to see that happen.
And I also just want to point out, because I did look it up, it looks like it did increase to 25%.
It did increase to 25?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has been.
And I
It is 25%.
think most people are, people are upset about what we pay for water. I think what most people are concerned about more is the quality and the quantity of the water. If the water, we had lots of water, was not a problem with pressure, and the water was good, fine. I think we can possibly change the quantity of the water. The quality of the water is not going to change. It's what everybody gets. And when it turns yellow, it's they're running the chlorine through the pipes. And they do it two or three times a year.
I will make the following comments and observations very quickly. I'm new to this, so, and I've, spoken with the city attorney for the city of North Miami. I understand what their concern is. I'm hearing your concerns, and I now need to start going through the document. It's not that long, but with that said, I'll be very candid with you. I have seen bulk service, water service agreements that are the size of this binder, and cover A to Z, and some of the issues, including the issues and concerns that you have raised. I don't want to overdo this, but I also don't want to underdo it for this commission and the residents of the village. So the first thing I need to do is spend a minimum amount of time in looking through the agreement that was drafted and how it's been modified by the city of North Miami, and then to understand what are the parameters, and then individually or collectively advise you, here's what this agreement is intended to accomplish. What else, if anything, do you want me to try and accomplish through this agreement? And we're not, candidly, I'm not at that point yet to be able to tell you what it seeks to accomplish and what else you may want it to seek to accomplish, because I've not read it in its entirety to understand it completely.
Right, and I'm not looking for a legal book They're going to be our water service provider. I'm just looking for some protection for our residents that will help us move forward with some of the issues that are currently affecting us. That's my position on this. Commissioner Ross.
So I've listened to all of the comments, and we can, we can demand certain things, and we can hold our breath, but ultimately, it's a negotiation. They have to agree.
Correct.
To do it. So they've already been very candid and said there are some things that they just will not accept. And no matter how nicely John talks to them, they're not going to change their minds about those things. So I think the important thing is to have a contractual relationship with them, but understand that they're only going to provide what they're willing to provide to us. And if they're not making infrastructure improvements within their city for their voters, they're not going to make those improvements for us. They did a couple of years ago commit some funds, and they increased the flow rate along 11th Avenue in a little small section there. And they did that because they were required to meet a certain standard.
Yes.
For the fire hydrants to work and that kind of pressure. That's what we're going to get from them. The things that are imposed by the state and required of their utility.
But
so I don't really want to burn a lot of time and money in making demands that are not going to succeed.
I'm just going to say I'm not looking for them to install all new water pipes tomorrow. That's not what I'm looking at here. I know that's not realistic, but at the same time, people should be able to turn on their faucet and have a decent flow of water and take a shower in one or more bathrooms without installing some sort of structure to do that. So I do respectfully request that we have something that has to do with basic water pressure and basic water quality. I don't think that's unreasonable for a service, and I don't think North Miami will think that's unreasonable.
I believe we don't know what that is, the minimum standards that they have to supply, and we don't know whether we're getting it or not. We may very well be getting it, but we may not be.
That may be the answer to that, to that very broad question is probably outside my area of expertise. I do a lot of this type of work, utility work. I know more than the average person and even attorney, but you know, the determinations of that nature ultimately is probably is beyond my scope of expertise or knowledge. You know, one of the things that we can do that is frankly free to some degree is make a public records request to the city of North Miami for copies of all their utility records as they relate to the system, the infrastructure, and the village. The only caveat to that is that some of the infrastructure, as I understand it, is pretty very old, and maybe even the city of North Miami doesn't have adequate or complete records.
They have, let me just be clear, because I did run into someone, and not to get any of the employees an issue, but I did have somebody, they actually have a device that actually brings all that out. So they have the map.
Okay.
So that is available. We just don't have that map.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, we did I mean, especially when they did the project, the upgrades that they did, they provided us with extensive records and maps of their.
Okay, and I don't want to waste North Miami's time either if we already have them, but if we don't have them, it would be beneficial.
Which Heidi showed me once, which I think was red or whatever, and she went through it and said, here's the map of the village, here are the maps of all the water pipes.
Well, I guess to that point is I maybe within that is you know, the specification of what the water flow is supposed to be.
Could be, maybe it is.
So
I know the water's bad. My house isn't bad, other people's are worse. We haven't had a broken pipe in my neighborhood since a week ago Thursday. I know, a week ago Thursday. They came out and they said, it's a broken pipe. I said, yes. See the water on the ground? Oh, okay. So
All right, I'm going to.
I understand.
let's do a little
Let's,
research.
just before we do that, Vice Mayor Tudor.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting discussion, but I think some of it is putting the cart before the horse. I think the first step is reaching out to North Miami, finding out what they're flexible on, what they're rigid on, And then areas where there may be some flexibility, trying to massage that to our best benefit. But I think first of all is just starting that conversation, which it sounds like you've started.
Yep. Certainly my objective is to do that.
Okay, so basically, the only thing I was looking for a consensus that we, and I'm not even looking for a motion, more of a consensus to allow the village manager and village attorney to solidify a fair and favorable contract with North Miami and bring forth that back to us. And hopefully North Miami will also move that forward and in a timely manner. That's all I was asking for, consensus.
Just one question, just dovetailing off of what Vice Mayor Tudor just said. If you ask for the consensus to basically roll out an agreement, I think it's like we're jumping ahead, because I don't know if we'll get back the information as a commission as to even what we can move forward with.
So would you like piecemeal?
The first step is to kind of pace this, because I think it could run away. We could be spinning our wheels, spending attorney time and money where we don't even know what we can do. So I think the first step is probably to ask the village manager and village attorney to reach out and, like Vice Mayor Tudor said, find out, okay, this is what they're willing to do. Come back to us, and if it's even worthwhile, the public can even hear these are the points that they're willing to make, then we can make that decision, I think.
I have no problem with that. You want to make a motion? Or we have a motion. How about a consensus? Do we have a consensus to move forward piecemeal, first one?
You direct me, I get the
Okay,
message.
so everybody, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, next one is for William Tudor. I just want to make a point. It is now 9:50, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead. 10,
This will
12D.
be fast.
I apologize.
No problem. Item 12D, I was actually enjoying the water discussion. Not really. Okay. Item 12D is the mass emergency notification system. Excuse me. Several months back, we discussed this. I brought this forward to the commission. I think it was April. May not remember correctly, but at that time, there was full support of the commission to move forward on implementing an emergency notification system. We were looking at two systems at the time. One was Nixle, one was, I think, Swift 911. Since that time, I've had discussions with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and they have informed me that they provide access at no cost to the Everbridge system, which is part of, Nixle is kind of the smaller version of Everbridge. So in order to utilize that service, the village would have to execute a memorandum of agreement between the village and the Florida Division of Emergency Management. So I'm here for the commission to direct the manager and the village attorney to move forward on executing that agreement.
Are there any comments? Commissioner Ross?
So this came before us back in April when we all agreed that it's advisable to have an emergency notification system. And we instructed staff to evaluate the proposal, Commissioner Tudor's proposal, as well as other things, and come back to us with a recommendation and evaluation. That's the one thing that's missing from this item. I don't know what staff.
In an effort for, because we do have another item after this that's very important, in an effort of that, because Village Manager, could you be so kind as to give us an oral on that, please?
I've met with Swift 911, with Nixle, with Code Red, and we've looked at all of these. The capabilities are within the realm of each other, frankly, with all of these companies. The Everbridge program, Everbridge is the parent company of Nixle. So we can really utilize this. It's a free service provided through them, through the state of Florida. The state of Florida may at some point change to another company, and we would, piggyback on with that, most likely. But currently, this looks like the best option, and it's free.
Thank you. Commissioner Tudor, I thank you so much for bringing forth this item. I think this is much needed and will help us moving forward. Are there any other comments from Commissioner Johnson-Sardillo? Commissioner Bill.
No, go ahead.
I guess my question is, or my thought is, it's a free system. Let's try it. It's like so many things you don't know what it doesn't do until you've used it for a while.
And the users, there's
Right,
also the
and
user
since
acquisition.
it's free, it doesn't cost us anything, and 6 months from now, we say, wait a second, we actually really need Z because this doesn't work. Well, we don't even know what we don't know. So let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, Commissioner
It's
Ross,
free.
you had another comment?
Yeah, thank you, Christian, for that evaluation, which wasn't part of the record. My other question is, if we don't put a resolution in front of this memorandum of agreement, it's just going to be a document that gets signed and put into a file somewhere. And we've created sort of a tradition of having agreements posted to the website under resolutions. So I would rather see, and we can say draft and adopt if we can trust that to happen. I'd rather see this approved in a way that has transparency and gets posted on the website.
Absolutely.
Okay,
We
so,
can certainly do that.
so I think that's a great idea. Is there a motion to draft and adopt? I'm sorry, Commissioner Johnson-Shelley, did you have another comment?
No, I had
okay.
no comment.
Is there a motion to draft and adopt with a resolution to go with the member of understanding to accept the mass communication emergency notification system?
Attorney, is that your
from FDM?
recommendation also?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. That's very easy. It's really just a question of you want to delegate that responsibility to staff, or you want to physically see the resolution on the next agenda.
No, I have no problem draft and adopt, which basically you're drafting, adopting, and we're adopting the memorandum, so it just goes in file and on record. So is there a motion to do so?
I make a motion to do so.
Is there a
Draft
second?
and adopt.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Okay.
So all we have
We have 10:55. The last item, hold on. Give me 1 second. 9:55, I'm sorry. I said 10:50, 9:55. Yep. The last item is 12E, and that's the manager evaluation by the commission. Because of the late hour, if there is no objection, I'm not trying to limit everybody, but I am trying to be respectful of people's time. If it's possible to limit our comments to 3 minutes, that might be helpful if there's no objection by the commission.
I believe I had spoken to the attorney, and he said we can do our own, and we don't have to do it in public. We don't have to write or do whatever else we want, as long as there's nothing that says we have to.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to do it, they can do it.
I'm not requiring, I'm just trying to limit, I'm just trying to be respectful of time. It is 10:56. It's been a long evening.
9:56.
It feels like 10:56, I apologize. So if there's no objection, we can have a few minutes. You don't have to comment, it's just if you want to, that would be all I would suggest. So is there any objection to that? Okay. I'll start, we'll just do this in order. Let's just do it for the Vice Mayor. Do you have any?
This evaluation pretty much has been ongoing since day one. I meet with Christian on a multiple basis every week. I've been very, I'll kind of echo some of the comments that some of the residents made here, who are no longer here, of course, that I've been very pleased with the work that he's provided us. As in all new positions, there have been some little stumbles here and there, but I think that has been primarily tied to the fact that we have provided him with an understaffed office, and I think going forward with this new budget, that's going to alleviate some of those concerns that people have. You know, I'm definitely looking forward to working further with the village manager through at least November and hopefully past that. So with that said, I'm very happy with our selection.
Okay. Commissioner Bilt?
I've already spoken to the manager, and we discussed his long comings and shortcomings.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson-Sardella?
I'm probably going to echo a little bit of what both commissioners have said. I talk with Christian regularly. I've discussed with him things that I've discussed with him things that I might not have been happy with and things that I've been really happy with. And overall, I've been happy with him. I feel like I get information. There's a easy flow of communication. I think that he can build upon what he's already shown us. The thing that I like is I feel like staff is happy. And if you have someone in a place that can help staff work, then that's all the better. There has been, understaffing issues, so again, probably echoing from our Vice Mayor Tudor, there have been some stumbles, but I think that we can get past that, so I am pleased with our manager.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
I think Krishnan is an outstanding person, just on a personal level. And I recognize that you took on the job of manager without having a lot of background in that. And so we knew that there was going to be a learning curve. I am disappointed that you haven't availed yourself of some education specifically with regard to running municipality. And it was one of the things that we first talked about, that was something that you needed. You needed to get those tools. And I don't think you pursued that. So honestly, I hope that you do, because without them, you're not going to succeed, and then we're not going to succeed. We've set aside budgeted dollars for you to pursue that, and if you don't make the time to do it, it's just not going to work out. I recognize that you've thrown a lot of things. A lot of things were thrown at you in the last 18 months. And you've handled them for the most part well. But one of the things that is a shortcoming is where we already had budgeted dollars to hire staff to assist with clerical work, and nobody was hired, and we didn't hire that person. And so that just sets us further back. And I know sometimes it feels like you're putting out fires, but you need to build the structure so that you're not constantly putting out those fires, and you have other people that can move in and take care of things for you. So I really want to see you grow in that area. There are some specific things that we've talked about that haven't been brought to fruition, or the loop wasn't closed on them. One of them was even included as a term in your contract, and it had to do with the leave policy. We've had discussions about that, and I've even stopped bringing it up because we're not getting anywhere with it. But I think we need to go back and close that loop and update those personnel policies to take care of the question about leave. And we need to do much better at reporting our finances on the website. Our financial information, the last month posted was December 31, 2016. We do get now, with our new finance director, we are getting those monthly reports, but they're not going out to the public. And so we really need to post that. More importantly, the audit, the 2016 audit, which we're required to have online, is not online. So we need to make sure that we get that done. There are some other things that still need to be brought up, like corrected or updated, like the comprehensive emergency management plan. We recently, earlier this year, approved the POD MOU, the point of distribution MOU, that Commissioner Tudor brought to us, and I thought it was a nice enhancement. We need to make sure that that's included in our comprehensive emergency plan, along with all of the lessons learned from Irma, and update. We're halfway into the next hurricane season, and we haven't done that, and we need to. In fact, the resolution that we just approved today for the emergency communications, that needs to go, be brought up into the emergency management plan. And so there are things like that. One of the things that really makes me crazy, and it was very evident in this budget process is agendas and things get published that haven't been thoroughly reviewed. And so we get revision upon revision upon revision, even up until we walk into the meeting. And part of that is not having all the clerical assistance that you need. But you're the only person that can put those things in place. So that's what we need you to do. And, you know, now that there are some more dollars allocated, particularly for that public works position, I hope that you're able to free up your time to take care of all of these things and correct them.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with Manager Manners for the past 15 months. Yes, it's only been about a year and a quarter. His accomplishments are extensive, and his dedications are second to none. I found Manager Manners to be personable, communicative, responsive, and exemplary in all respects. He takes a collaborative approach in resolving issues very critical to this governance and its residents. He keeps the Commission staff and village attorney informed of important matters, and that can be challenging with countless issues that need immediate attention. He makes every attempt at being fully transparent and goes out of his way to work with the residents, vendors, neighboring municipalities, and the Commission. In identifying and setting goals and policy, Manager Manners works with each commission member and takes direction from the Commission as a whole. The village has had numerous vacancies. The manager continues to recruit and retain competent personnel. With regards to the budget, Manager Manners maximizes the use of available funds, which can be challenging with the village's limited resources and competing needs. Unlike previous managers, Manager Manners regularly attends most board meetings himself. Unlike many managers, he makes himself available to our residents and tries to resolve their issues. He is courteous, personable, and requires the same of his staff. If he has a flaw, it is that he does not pause to communicate all that his and his staff are doing and have achieved, and I have bugged him on this, I cannot tell you, but countless times. It is not easy to navigate 5 commissioners with diverse goals and expectations and meet the persistent demands of some residents. He does so with respect and grace. Since taking this position, Manager Manners' performance has been on the highest caliber, and I look forward to his continued success on the behalf of all of us. Manager Manners, would you like to add anything to comments?
No, thank you all for your comments and your criticisms. All of it is heard, and I'll be happy to work on the items that have been brought up and to try and improve those, as well as to maintain the level that we have had or improve upon that. One of the things that I've done, and you're right, I don't promote myself as a rule, but I have put together just a list of the accomplishments or the things that we have accomplished this year.
You did that.
And so
Thank
I
you.
did, and I'll pass those out. Would you pass those down first?
Thank you.
And that will just give you guys an idea of some of the stuff. It's not entirely comprehensive, but, you know, and while that's coming out at my review time under my name, I want to make clear that that is the police department, that is staff, that is public works, parks and rec, code, all of those. This has been a team effort. This has not been solely me, and we've worked together well as a team. So.
If you give us a moment to review it.
Sure.
Thank you. It is extensive. Actually, I don't think we're going to get through this in the next few minutes.
I mean, we've already been through our reviews. I'm not trying to sell you on something now. So but I did want to, you know, just point that out so you guys have a listing of some of the stuff that we have accomplished this year, because it's been a hectic, creative, frantic year. There's been a lot of firefighting. There's been, you know, more than a few surprises, and we've gotten through them so far, and we're continuing to.
Thank you. So with that, is there a motion on the floor to approve the continuance of Manager Christian Manners' contract with the village with the full support of the Commission?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I would like to make one comment in the budget, which we don't have. Manager Manners is the only person who did not ask for anything other than minimal raise. I am requesting that you consider, if we have the funding, based upon what I'm saying, I'm not sure we do, but I'd like to see at least move his salary to, he went from 82 to 84. I'd like to see at least go to 87, which is a $5,000 raise. He lives here, and he was here full-time during the hurricane. He's here all the time. I think that's a reasonable thing to request. And I know we had talked about that last time after his contract, but I don't know if you all would consider it or if we have even the budget for it at this point.
I think we should wait until the revised budget comes back to us.
Okay, I have no objection to that. All right, thank you all very much, and this has been a very long 2 meetings. So we have announcements, I believe?
Reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, village report, manager, do you have any reports and updates, and then village attorney? Nothing for the village attorney and village manager? Any further reports? Okay, thank you. Announcements?
Wednesday, September 13, 2018, 6 p.m., we have Public Art Advisory Board. Monday, September 17, 2018, 6:30 p.m., Planning and Zoning Board. Wednesday, September 19, 2018, 7 p.m. Actually, this was canceled. Thursday, September 20, 7 p.m., Parks and Parkway Board. Wednesday, September 26, 2018, 6:30 p.m., Public Safety Advisory Board. And Monday, October 1st, 2018, 6:30 p.m., Planning and Zoning Board. Our next second budget hearing is scheduled for September 25th, 2018, 7 p.m. And also we have on September 20 at 8 p.m. a special commission meeting.
All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for everybody for coming, for those of you staying so long.